In 2006, with the start of the Classics, Hasbro gave us the legendary Seeker mold. This figure was repainted into seemingly every different Seeker that had a name, until the mold for it began to fall apart. We got a new Seeker mold after extremely disappointing Seeker mold. Up until 2019, when War for Cybertron Siege gave us a clean-looking, well-articulated, and cartoon-accurate Seeker mold. Was this it? Was this the new definitive Seeker mold? Well, apparently not. They revealed the new Starscream 7 months after the release of the Siege Dude. Here's the review of the new Thundecracker and Skywarp, exclusive to Target. Starting off in jet mode, I have to say that the Seekers now have exquisite detail in this mode. The paint apps are extremely crisp here. There's no real problems that I have with the paint. I love the silver here, which is a great carry over from the Classics mold. As you can see on Skywarp, this is basically just a mirror. Their paint apps are basically all in the same place, except for these are purple, and these are red and blue. I also love the orange cockpits that they have on here. It's a much more vibrant orange than the old Classics version, which was kind of a more yellowish color or either just a washed out orange, so that's also a very nice touch. Another one of my favorite things about this jet mode that they've improved from the Classics version is that it's very ergonomic and swooshable. Like this is super fun to hold from back here because his legs allow you just enough space to put your hand here and just move around, and it feels just like a fun jet to play with. Unfortunately, the jet mode has a few problems. The first of that being there is no more landing gear. Like, there's no landing gear on this at all. The Classics version did have that, and that was the reason why they had this awkward design here with the chest. But at least they did have landing gear. These don't have landing gear at all, and this is all just molded plastic. It's all molded detail. They didn't even put in some new landing gear up here in the nose cone where it usually would be, and they also didn't do something like what they did with the Masterpiece where the wheels come out of the shins, so that is just completely out of the picture, which is kind of a bit of a failure for me. We also have the visible head syndrome here, which was not fixed from the Classics version. The Classics version did have the benefit of having the nose cone and the head be just one piece, and the head actually becomes a part of it. On the initial Classics version of the mold of Starscream, you could see his black head sticking out from here amongst the rest of the nose cone. And this is also a problem here. I feel like, you know, in 2020 they could have come up with something to fill this in. So it's unfortunate that this problem still persists. However, it does blend in much more on Skywarp considering his color scheme. So that's at least a plus for Skywarp, but definitely counts against Thundecracker here. There's also this dumb port right here because it's all Earthrise and Siege and they have to put in all the little ports, and it's really unfortunate that they just have this port sticking out right here, and it's really an eyesore and breaks up the whole clean look of this jet. This is probably the perfect Seeker mold, and they had to put this port here for some reason, which the Classics version didn't have that, of course, which makes it a bit of a cleaner jet in that regard, but it's still very unfortunate that they just have a giant port right there sticking out of their jet modes. And my last complaint about the jet mode is that he has inaccurate thrusters. These are not the thrusters that are seen on the F-15. They're probably more modern looking. I'd say they probably look more like movie Starscream's thrusters, and that was something that they had on the Classics mold here, where they have the actual thrusters that are seen on the real life vehicle. But that's about it for the vehicle modes here for these guys. So let's talk about the transformation. The transformation is almost exactly like the Classics mold, except they've made a couple changes. So really they've gone with a philosophy of if it isn't broken, don't fix it. The only thing that's different is that his legs open up like a Combiner Wars toy, how the thigh would fold out of the bottom part of the leg and then close up, which is something that you see in this mold, which I do actually like. I feel like that was a nice touch, but it's a bit unfortunate that you don't have the satisfying click of the old mold. The other thing that they did change that I really don't like is the arm transformation. It's very confusing the first time you do it, and I feel like it's over-engineered for the task that it's supposed to do. I thought that the siege engineering for his forearms could have been implemented here, but for some reason they weren't, and that design also allowed us wrist swivel, which this one, because of the way it's designed, does not allow for wrist swivel anymore. There's also a bit of paint chipping because of the awkward torso design for when you have to split open the torso to take out the arms and put in the nose cone, which is a bit annoying, and you can see that I already have some on both figures. And that's probably all I have to say for the transformation. The transformation is almost exactly like the Classics mold, except they've made a couple changes. So really they've gone with a philosophy of if it isn't broken, don't fix it. The only thing that's different is that his legs open up like a Combiner Wars toy, how the thigh would fold out of the bottom part of the leg and then close up, which is something that you see in this mold, which I do actually like. I feel like that was a nice touch, but it's a bit unfortunate that you don't have the satisfying click of the old mold. The other thing that they did change that I really don't like is the arm transformation. It's very confusing the first time you do it, and I feel like it's over-engineered for the task that it's supposed to do. I thought that the siege engineering for his forearms could have been implemented here, but for some reason they weren't, and that design also allowed us wrist swivel, which this one, because of the way it's designed, does not allow for wrist swivel anymore. There's also a bit of paint chipping because of the awkward torso design for when you have to split open the torso to take out the arms and put in the nose cone, which is a bit annoying, and you can see that I already have some on both figures. And that's probably all I have to say for the transformation. And here we have Thundecracker and Skywarp in their robot modes. And just like the jet mode, the great detail comes back here, which is a very improved from the Classics mold, and while that is great, there has been a lot more added detail in the robot mode. Just like the jet mode, the paint looks great here as well. Now we have the animation accurate colors as opposed to the older, the more toy accurate look, which is something that carries over from Siege, which I like a lot. And I'm glad that they've changed Skywarp from that cloudy gray color on the Amazon exclusive Skywarp to the now black, the stark black color, which is a bit hard to see here. There's just a bit of contrast up against my white background, but you can see how much more darker he is compared to the old one, which I like a lot, because that was probably my biggest complaint about that Amazon exclusive, and one of the reasons why I never bought that. The head sculpt looks a lot better than the Siege version. Bringing in Starscream here, you can see how this one is a little more stylized, but this one I feel is closer to looking like the Seekers overall. And there's a lot of improved posability from the Classics version. You have ankle tilt. You have just a much more fluid figure here. It didn't have this thigh swivel, this upper thigh swivel here, and now they've added a skirt piece here to allow for a forward kick, which is great, but I feel it's a bit of a downgrade from the Siege version where they had the crotch plate be a part of his legs so that you could get that full kick without it breaking up the look of the rest of the figure. You've got universal joints here at his shoulders, which twist all the way around and go in and out and can do whatever you want. You also have an upper wrist or upper elbow swivel, as well as a bend at the elbow. And he has no wrist articulation, which I talked about in the transformation segment, which is really unfortunate because, you know, just a wanking Skywarp or wanking Thundecracker isn't really fun to play with. And he also has a ball jointed head. And also that's something that's been improved from the Classics version is he has articulated wings, so that you can do something like this, and it allows his arms to move. It's a bit awkward. I'll get into my complaints about this now. I don't like how this bends halfway through, whereas the Siege version, it articulated all the way back here at the start of the wing, whereas this is about 1/3 through the wing, which just, like, so close but so far in terms of wing articulation. So I'll probably just leave them like this. I think the proportions are a little more stout, which I do like that he is shorter now. I felt that the Siege mold was a teeny bit too tall. So this is probably the right height for the Seekers, but it has because of how much engineering has been shared with the Classics version, it now has the Classics proportions, which I don't really like. So it's just a little more squished, whereas this was a little more robust and flexible. I really don't like how does Hasbro think that this is like how Starscream looks with these intakes here? I mean, this has been like a design choice from Takara since 2003 or something like that, when they released MP Starscream, and now they've just become a part of the design. Whereas in the cartoon, they never had these little intakes here. It's on the Classics here, but these were meant to be landing gear, which I can appreciate a little more. So this was meant to be landing gear, and then this just became a part of the design. And I really don't like that they keep putting it on here. I would have rather this been all black and they didn't have these little intake things or whatever, and then replaced it with maybe molded detail in there, but just paint it all black. And I feel like that would be that's something they could have improved on. And the articulation is arguably worse than the Siege version. This benefited from not having jet kibble, which this one has to, because that's where these back fins end up. So this one just felt a little less clunky, even though his ankle tilt was minimal. And this one also had a double elbow bend, so he could do the, "Oh, look at me, I'm the leader of the Decepticons," or something silly like that. And also this one had wrist swivel, which, like I said, the engineering of this compromised the articulation and doesn't allow him to do either the double elbow bend or the wrist swivel, which is really a shame, because I really like the articulation on this, but I feel like these are more closer representations of these characters. And of course, the big thing that has everybody talking about these figures, and their biggest complaint probably, has got to be Skywarp's face. This is why I didn't use. This is why I had to use Thundecracker instead of this when I was talking about the head sculpt, because this is comical. This is very odd. I wouldn't say it's not a bad head sculpt, and like I said, I like the shape of it, and I like the detail, and I think that it's not a horrible looking screaming face, but he's constantly screaming, and he just looks so weird. Like, I'm questioning if this is supposed to be some kind of like a gang molded use of this head sculpt for like maybe an upcoming Coronation Starscream where he's screaming when he's being blasted apart by Galvatron, but which would make a lot of sense. I would not mind if they use this head sculpt for that figure if they ever do come out with that. But it's just very weird, and I have no idea why they would put it on Skywarp. He's never been, like, there's no memorable scene of him screaming or anything like that. Maybe in the intro when Jazz punches him or something like that. I'm really questioning the design choice of this. It's just so bizarre. And like I said, it's weird because I have a problem with it and I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a fine head sculpt, but the use of it is so bizarre and out of place. And I had wished that they had maybe done like a smirk or something like they did on Siege Thundecracker. Or maybe a more upset face or something like that. But this has got to be the most expressive face I've ever seen on a mainline figure ever. It's the perfect meme face that you could ever hope for in a figure. So, basically, what are my final thoughts? I think this is probably just as good as the Siege mold. I think it does a better job of representing Thundecracker and Skywarp, but it fails in just weird choices of design. It could have been the most pure and perfect Seeker mold, and I think that it probably is at this point. It's the perfect size. It's got pretty good articulation compared to other Starscreams at the Voyager price point, or Seeker molds at that for that matter. But it's just, there's little things that bring it down, and it kind of upsets me that because I know that this could have been better, but it's just not. So would I recommend these figures? Absolutely. It is a little weird paying $60 for the same figure, but you know, I think it's worth it because considering Siege Skywarp is like $3 trillion to buy on eBay at this point, it's cheaper to buy all 3 Earthrise Seekers than it is to buy Skywarp on its own if you're trying to complete the Siege trio. So I would definitely pick this up if you're in that group, but if you're not a completionist, or if you're not a big fan of these characters or anything like that, probably don't pick it up. But it is a fine set to have if that's your interest. So thank you so much for watching my review of these guys. Please leave a like and a comment so that I can see how you like this video. I know I haven't made a video in a long time, so well, at least compared to the Rampage video. But please subscribe to my channel. I'm taking a dip. Let me tell you, I've been taking a dip. I've only made 200 subs in like 5 years that I've been on YouTube. So as I said, thank you very much, and I'll see you in my next review.